can engage in is to hear about Krishna, hear Krishna's words from Bhagavad Gita, hear the talks of Krishna and Krishna's devotees that are contained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's explained that these activities are so wonderful in themselves that Krishna, who resides within our hearts as the Paramatma, becomes exceptionally pleased when he sees that we're undertaking these activities. And because he does become pleased, he starts cleansing our hearts from within. We've all heard so many classes, and we've all heard so many discussions that we have different types of impurities within the heart. Then we have different, what our acharyas call enemies, that live within the heart. We have this lust and anger and greed and illusion and madness. And very, very worst of all, there's envy within our heart. That we're envious that Krishna is the supreme controller or the supreme enjoyer, and envious of all of his parts and parcels. But to cleanse the heart of those qualities, and to cleanse the heart of any other inauspicious item which may be within, it's required that we hear and chant, Hare Krishna, how are you? Nice to see you, Dr. Swami. Hare Krishna. It's very important that we hear about Krishna and chant his holy names. After the beginning discussions are given in the Bhagavatam, there's the first Leela which is described, and that is the Leela of Narada Muni coming and meeting Srila Vyasadeva. And I think all of you must know that narration. You've probably heard it many times. But Vyasadeva was questioning himself. And he was thinking, I've tried to do so many good things in my life, but still I don't feel complete. I don't understand what the situation is. I compiled the Veda, and I divided the Veda into different divisions. And then I compiled the Mahabharata, and I compiled the Upanishads and so many scriptures, trying to help people. Still I feel incomplete. And when he had that question, his Guru Maharaj, Srila Narada Muni, came. And Narada Muni, in a very sweet way, he pinched Srila Vyasadeva. And he said, well, you've done so much, but basically, you haven't given people the essence of everything, which are the talks about Krishna. And until you do that, and until we hear the talks of Krishna, and until that time we become fully absorbed in the holy name, we will always have this empty feeling within our hearts. So they had a nice discussion, and Narada Muni described, the process by which he came to Krishna consciousness, and then he left. So naturally, the sages there in Naimishranya, sort of like the next logical question they had to ask Sutta Goswami is, well, after Narada Muni left, what did Vyasadeva do? And Sutta Goswami, he answered. He said he sat down by the side of the Saraswati, and he started to go into a state of trance, and he saw how evil Kali Yuga would be, and he saw how evil the minds of all the people in the Kali Yuga would become. And he saw how in Kali Yuga everybody would accept some activity with the purpose of happiness, but actually that activity would just bring suffering to the living being. That's called anartha, or unwanted things, unnecessary things. We have anarthas, and as the material civilization progresses, the material civilization is always creating and promoting new unnecessary things that we think that we must have for happiness. Like when I came to Mauritius back in 1987 for the first time, we didn't have these pesky mobile phones. But now everybody has a computer in their pocket, and they're constantly being distracted. Constantly being distracted. So Srila Vyasadeva, in his wisdom, he saw how everybody was going to be overwhelmed with so many different varieties of anarthas. And thus, Sutta Goswami, he spoke, Anartho pasamam shakshat bhakti yoga dhoksajay, lokasya ajanto vidvan skitam sarve prasit. Which means that Vyasadeva saw that everybody was absorbed in anarthas, and Vyasadeva understood that the only way by which a person's heart can become fully cleansed and free from anartha is to engage in the direct devotional service to the Lord. Krishna tells us also in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti amam vijanati yavanyascha santapataha. He says it's only by bhakti that I can be known. He never says it's by karma or by jnana or by yoga that I can be known. Definitely karma, jnana or yoga, they may be beneficial in some way to help to cleanse the consciousness. But if you want to know God in full, which is the very goal of our existence, this is Bhakti Mama Vijanati. And why that is because Bhakti cleanses the heart of all of these different anarthas. So it said, Anartho pasamam shakshat bhakti yoga aroksajay. The only process is to perform bhakti yoga, to it helps you. And then he says, Lokasya ajanato. But the general people in general, they're too unintelligent to understand that. And Srila Prabhupada would always say that people in Kali Yuga, their intelligence is quite lost. They're not very intelligent at all. And Srila Prabhupada, he was so elderly and he could speak in very strong terms, and Prabhupada would openly say that we're living in a cat and dog society that dresses very nicely. We live in a society of animals that wear a very good fashion. So lokasya ajanato. The people in general, they can't understand that. And for that reason, vidvan stitam sattve prasidati, sattva prasidata. Says, therefore that great learned Brahmin, Vyasdev, he compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam. So just the very act of reading the Bhagavatam on a regular basis and hearing the holy names of Krishna, this will change the heart. Pure devotional service creates a change within the heart. And when the heart becomes changed, then we can know and we can love Krishna. So we should become aware of that. We should become more convinced of that as each year and as each decade passes. If we want to know and love Krishna, we have to hear about him. I've mentioned many times how once when I was listening to a recording of Srila Prabhupada, I think that it was 1975 also. Now you're celebrating your 50th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada placing his lotus feet in Mauritius. But I think it was 75 also that Srila Prabhupada went to Tehran, Iran. And the Krishna consciousness movement was growing quite nicely over there. And he was having a darshan with his followers. And then he heard the call to prayer from one of the local mosques. And Srila Prabhupada asked his Iranian disciple, what is it that they're saying? And the Iranian disciple replied, Srila Prabhupada, they're saying that God is great. And Srila Prabhupada said, oh, it's so wonderful that they have that understanding. He said, but if they know God in truth, and if they read about God, and if they understand God from Srimad Bhagavatam, then they'll know how great he is, and then they'll love him in an unreserved way. So that's very important for all of us. And in our Srimad Bhagavatam, naturally, there's the story of Sri Rama as well. And it's interesting that the story of Sri Rama told in the Bhagavatam is in a very abbreviated version because Shukdev Goswami knew that later the Ramayana would have the vast history of Lord Rama. But that discussion of Lord Rama's character and qualities and his chivalrous activities are there also for us to hear and to meditate upon. And whenever we do think of Lord Ram, we think of like the qualities of the ideal leader of human society. We think of a leader whose every action, whose every breath was based on the principles of Dharma. As Srila Prabhupada would always repeat, Dharmam tu shakshat bhagavan pranitam. Dharma can only be established by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lord Rama was the perfect example of following the principles of Dharma. He showed us in his Leela the perfect manifestation of Dharma to his father. He showed us in his Leela the perfect manifestation of Dharma to his wife Sita. He showed us in his Leela the perfect manifestation of Dharma to his friends and his servants. He showed us in his Leela the perfect manifestation of Dharma to the citizens of Ayodhya. And we should hear, today is Ram Navami, but we should always be conscious of what real leaders for human society should be, and the qualities which they should have. 50 years ago, 55 years ago, when our Srila Prabhupada was preaching, he was very soundly, denouncing the so-called leaders of human society at that time. There was one president in America, his name was Nixon. And Prabhupada would speak of him and he called him Nixon Tiger. He said he's just a tiger trying to drink the blood of everyone. I cannot imagine what Srila Prabhupada would be thinking now if he looked at America and saw the leadership in America these days. He would be losing his mind. But Sri Rama is a perfect leader. Prabhupada was always fond of saying, everybody wants the kingdom of Ram, but they don't want, or everybody wants Ram and they want the kingdom of Ram, but they don't want to live in the appropriate way to have that. Ram was so perfect in justice, and he was one of those leaders who couldn't be corrupted. Some places in the world, they have very corrupt leaders. Some places in the world, they have just like a minority of people who stand up to try to take control of the country for the purpose of corruption. And one group will get up and they will, like in our India, we have Congress Party and we have BJP. And anybody who knows the politics of India, Congress is so corrupt. And BJP is trying to do much better. In some countries, they'll repeat having one leader, and they get tired of him, and they vote for the opposition, same leader who was corrupt before, they get tired of him, then they vote for another leader in the same party from before he was corrupt. It goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. And the only thing that happens is the population suffers. But Rama was not like that. was performing our Leela, he was acting as though he were a normal human. Still, he showed them his perfect example. So we should hear about Rama. We should hear the topics of Krishna. We should always hear the names of Krishna. You know, this year in January, they had that big Kumbh Mela in India. Did anyone here attend Kumbh Mela? Anyone? Some hands sort of have gone up. Myself and a bunch of devotees, we got in cars to drive down to the Kumbh Mela. And after we drove 350 kilometers, we drove up to a traffic jam that was 225 kilometers long. So we decided better we turn back. But in 1989, I had the seva. The society gave me the seva to organize ISKCON's Kumbh camp. So a year before the Mela, I traveled all over India, going to all the different temples and tapping into all of the good managers of all the centers in India, requesting, please, you come, you take some responsibility. You be responsible for prashad. You be responsible for accommodation. You be responsible for Harinam. You be responsible for tent program. We had very wonderful camp. And every day there would be a Harinam party going out into the Kumbh Nagar. And at least 200 devotees would be in the Harinam every day. That's a big Harinam party. And we had, this was before the era of having microphones on everything. I think in each kirtan party, when we would go out during the day, we would have 10 mridanga players. Can you imagine? We didn't have djembes back then. Praise the Lord. But we had mridangas. And one day, Indra Swami, he said, where will we go today for Harinam? And I said, well, let's go to the camp of Devrah Baba. Devrah Baba, he was a saint that was like around 350 years old. Very famous yogi. He was a Siddha, a Stanga yogi. And I had met him in Vrindavan. So we decided to take the big Harinam party up to his camp. And when we got there, there were maybe 5,000 people sitting on the sand, the banks of the Ganga, waiting for the Baba to come out from his hut to give them darshan. And Baba lived in a grass hut that was on top of bamboo bali. He didn't live right on the earth. And when he heard our kirtan come in, Baba came crawling out from his hut. And when you saw him, you could understand, yes, he must be 350 years old. I mean, he was very skinny and bones and like very long matted hair. You know, really like an individual from another age. And he listened to the kirtan, and then we stopped. And one of his disciples took a microphone and he tied it up on a bamboo stick and he held it up so the Baba could speak on the microphone. And he looked out at those 5,000 people and he said, why are you people here to follow me. He said, you should not follow me. You should follow those people. And we were all very surprised that he had said that. And then he looked up and he said, in this age, yoga is not the process for perfection. But the process for perfection is Ramnam and Krishnanam. He said, all of you should always do either Ramnam or Krishnanam. And if you do that, you will attain perfection. He said, do not follow me. He said, I am a yogi. He said, these people, they are the disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he said, and they are the disciples of Bhakti Vedanta Swami.
Yeah.
And when he said Bhakti Vedanta Swami, he sort of like, he said it 2 or 3 times as if when he was hearing Bhakti Vedanta Swami, he was, tasting such a relishable remembrance of Srila Prabhupada. And then he did something interesting. He had one of his disciples bring a box of those big Gita press Bhagavad Gitas. Do you seen those in India? Big brown Bhagavad Gitas. The Gita press, they print very, very inexpensively, so everybody can purchase a copy of one of those books. And his disciple gave him the Bhagavad Gita, and Baba held up the Gita, and then people started running and giving him 51 rupees. And he was just like passing out box after box of Bhagavad Gitas. And we were watching that with great joy, seeing the new book distribution. And then I turned to Indraduna Swami and I said, Maharaj, just see how powerful is the process of bhakti. I said, the first day we joined the temple, we got kicked out on the street to sell Bhagavad Gitas. We had to wait 350 years. So, Shinvata Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vidyantaksto Yavadrani Vidanoti Suritsatam. Krishna is our best friend. He lives within our hearts. And when he just sees that we're hearing about him and chanting about him, then our best friend within our heart begins to cleanse everything abhadra or inauspicious. And by his grace, we can come to the position of perfection of life, which is to develop our natural, eternal loving relationship with Krishna. That's our real duty. So many duties we have to do, but our main duty is to become self-realized in Krishna consciousness and to love Krishna. So thank you all. It's very nice to be with you again. Now we'll chant Hare Krishna. Thank you, Hare Krishna.